something you've been putting off. Maybe you say, someday I'll do that, or when I have more time. Whether the item is a big bucket list item or something smaller like going on a hike, now is the time to start your Say Yes list. And we have the perfect process to help you turn these items into reality. Join thousands of others with our free Say Yes list template at thesayesexperience.com/list. It'll help you stop living in that someday and start making those list items come true today. So download it now at thesayesexperience.com/list. Welcome to the Say Yes Experience podcast, where we inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into possibility. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. If you're new here, welcome. We're thrilled you're here. I'm Jessica Rector. I co-founded the Say Yes Experience with my then 9-year-old son Blaze, based off his idea to let's just say yes to things. I'm one of the top experts on burnout, and companies and conferences hire me to present on mental health, wellness, and burnout prevention. As the #1 best-selling author of 11 books, keynote speaker, and a burnout specialist, I've seen so much with our clients. The Say Yes Experience was started to help you really start living, to do the things that light you up, have more fun, and turn your dreams, or what we call Say Yes list items, into reality. So thank you for investing in yourself and being here. Now let's make it happen. Imagine traveling to a destination you've always wanted to go to, and you happen upon a beach, and you meet someone on that beach that changes the rest of your life. Our guest today, Carly Jowit, knows exactly how that is, and she'll share her story on how one encounter, one Say Yes decision changed the rest of her life. So please help me welcome our special guest today, Carly Jowit. Thank you so much for being here, Carly. We're excited to have you on the show. So you have a very fascinating Say Yes experience. Tell us how it got started and really where the idea for it came from.
Yeah, definitely. So my yes journey started, I think, not where people would expect when they hear someone say, oh, I traveled around the world. Often that is people's like, I said yes and I went traveling. So when growing up, I basically had a goal list, which a lot of people do, but my list had 2 objects on it. That was it. One was to study acting. The other was to travel the world. So I finished high school. I went to university. I studied acting, and I found a friend and we traveled the world. Now that's not unusual for English people, okay? So it's very usual for English people to go to university, take a gap year. All the travel agents will sell these round the world tickets that last a year, and then you come back home, you get your job, you get married, you settle down, you go back to your hometown. But basically a lot of my friends, I had all the same friends since I was sort of 5 years old. We all grew up in the same town. All my family essentially live in the same town or neighbouring villages. Just people don't leave. So I left England way back in, 2001. So we're going back a few years now.
Yeah.
And went off to Asia. I think first stop was like India, then
So this is when you started traveling around the world.
Yeah, so this is when I started traveling around the world.
Oh, I'm just going to say, Carly, we in the States need to take that idea on. Take that gap year and travel around the world, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely great. It's definitely great. So I think the first inkling that I was like, yeah, let's just, say yes to anything is when my friend and I were in Malaysia, and we were just staying at a normal sort of backpacker type place, and we didn't really have any real plans apart from we knew we were flying out of Bangkok. But other than that, we were pretty, I don't want to say naive, but we didn't really know that much about Asia. So, and we met these guys and they were telling us, they were coming downwards and we were heading sort of up, and they said, oh, we've just been to a full moon party. And I'm pretty sure now everyone will know what a full moon party is.
Well, for those who don't know what is that? Because I can't.
Okay. So for those who don't know what it is, in Thailand, every full moon, so once a month, I think it's once a month, they have this massive party on this little island called Koh Phangan, and they're pretty wild. Now, when I was there, wild was maybe about 2,000 people. Now, in recent years, people show me pictures and there's 20,000 people. So,
and what's so funny, Carly, is I just went to Thailand a few months ago and all kinds of research on Thailand, and I didn't even find anything about full moon parties. Like nothing came up in any research I did. So that's why when you're like, yeah, I'm like, what is that? I just went to granted, I went with the 10-year-old, so we weren't looking for full moon.
Oh yeah, so probably aimed at you.
And that, I didn't find anything in my research about that. So that is so fascinating and how fun.
Okay, well, yeah, so obviously, we're a couple of, 20-year-old girls. We hear about this full moon party where you just go to the beach, everyone parties all night, and we were like, okay, cool, let's go. And they said, well, the next one's on in about 3 days. So we were just like, okay, let's go tomorrow. Let's leave in the morning. Let's do it.
I love it.
So we just packed up, off we went, and I think so this is where I met a guy, which a lot of people do when they're on holiday. They sort of meet someone, have a little holiday romance. And I met this guy on the beach, and it was actually at a sort of end of a night after a few beverages I can share. Right? And the next morning I said to my friend, I'm not sure I should be promoting this, but I said, I don't think I can remember what he looks like. And
hey, Carly, let's be honest, after a few beverages, that is not probably that uncommon.
Okay.
Right?
I said, I'm not even sure I remember his name, but I do remember when I had met him, I was just like, well, I think this is like the man of my dream. I think this is the man I'm going to marry. And, but funny, because I didn't really know his name, couldn't remember what he looked like, but I just remember we'd had this real connection, and
but she had bad feelings, right?
Yeah. And, I didn't know where he was staying. And the next day, I said to my friend, I think that's him there, because he is someone who packs very light and only brought sort of one change of clothing. So he was wearing the same outfit. So that's how I recognized him.
That's funny. You don't remember what he looked like, but you remember what he wore.
Yeah, exactly. So, we hung out for a couple of days. Yeah. And then my girlfriend, she said, look, I'm ready to leave this island. And she said, I get the feeling you want to stay. And I was like, well, I do. And before we left to go traveling, me and my friend had made this pact, and because we'd met a lot of people who had fallen out traveling. And we'd always said, look, if we ever want to do something different, we will both be totally fine with that. We're not going to get angry that someone wants to do something and the other doesn't. So that was really nice that I had a friend that we knew, great, we'll do something different, we'll meet up later.
Yeah.
And so I said to this guy, well, why don't you come? You can share my room with me and we can do some traveling together. And then when he got there that morning, my friend and I, we said, well, we actually don't really know anything about this guy. Like, we've known him for maybe top sort of 10 hours. And this is early 2000s. So internet's not really a big thing. Right. You can't go on and stalk people online. And so then in our wisdom when we were young, we were like, well, we'll just ask him a few questions, make sure he's safe.
Yes, I love that. I love it. And you're so in safety. I love it. Like,
but these legit were the 3 questions we asked him before she left me by myself with him.
Tell me.
Are you a murderer? He says no. We said, okay, are you a rapist? No. Are you a serial killer? Which, I mean, it's kind of the same as a murderer, but he said no to all 3. So we were like, okay, cool. Okay, all right.
But here's the question. Thankfully, he wasn't any of those.
Yeah,
but if he was, would they really admit that they were?
I know. And it's only sort of years later when we think about that and we think, like he would have told us if he was. So
we think in our 20s, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
exactly. So that was, I mean, it's a lot easier to be safer now because everyone carries their phone on them, which is like a tracking device. I'm pretty sure my parents had no idea I was that whole year. But, back in there, it was
just so different back then. No.
Yeah, no one, exactly. So we ended up traveling around Asia for about 3 weeks. He was just there on a summer holiday from university, lived in Australia. And, So, and I obviously live in England. I was planning on going to Australia anyway, but my plan had been, I'm going to go to Australia for 4 months because we could get a working visa there. I was just going to work for 4 months, use that money, keep traveling.
Yeah.
So off he flies to Australia, and we sent a couple of emails, but as we know, emailing wasn't a big thing. You had to go to a cafe. You had to, it was a big thing.
It was a whole process. Yeah,
it was a whole process. It wasn't just, easier send a text and this whole time, but we still communicated a lot. And I thought, gosh, I really like this guy. And I was like, well, what have I got to lose if I change my ticket, fly to Melbourne and just see what happens?
So where were you planning on going?
So my plan originally was to fly into Cairns, which is the very top of Australia, and then just go to the coast to Sydney for 4 months and then leave. That was my plan. So I thought, and at the time you could only get a 1-year working holiday visa, but our whole trip was for 1 year.
Okay.
So
I said, okay, I'm just going to change my ticket. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, if it doesn't work out, I'll just keep on traveling. I'll go meet back up with my friends. Yeah. So of course I found a phone booth, and over in Asia I find a phone booth, and I call his landline, his home phone, because that's what people had in the day. Yeah, I called his home phone, and he didn't answer because you don't carry your home phone around with you. So I left a voicemail, and I said, well, this is what I've done. I'll be arriving on this day. And just what you just said, hey, I'm arriving on this day. Hoping what? That he would be here before the airport. Yeah. That's what I just assumed. I just assumed. I said, I'm arriving on this day, this time, and I'll be here. I'll see you then. And I know.
Faith and being bold and courageous, and hey, better meet me at the airport. I'll see you later.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just a product of my times, because obviously when you were a child, you would say to your friends, okay, I'll meet you here. And you just would rock up and expect them to be there, because you couldn't be texting them, checking where they were. So you just would say stuff, okay, I'll meet you here.
Yeah.
And just have faith that that's what you were doing.
And they'd also know that they're going to be there, that they're supposed to be there. And the only way that they wouldn't be there, there's something drastic happen.
Happen. Exactly. So I did, I changed my tickets. I arrive in Australia. I'm getting quite excited, and and my flight was on time, nothing delayed. And I'm sitting outside the airport, and I look at my watch, and I'm like, okay, 15 minutes. Well, this is no biggie, 15 minutes. Like, it's basically on time. Half an hour, 45 minutes. And I was trying to talk myself up. I was like, you've just traveled by yourself, through so parts through Asia. You can do this. This is not a big deal. Like, and I was like, everyone speaks English here. You'll be fine. And then he actually showed up 1 hour late.
I have to say, if I just picture myself in that situation, Carly, and literally if it's like past 30 minutes, our brains are just wired to go to the negative. And so, great, he's not going to show up. What's plan B? Like, where am I going to stay? Because did you have somewhere to stay, or were you just planning on staying with him?
I was just planning on staying with him. I had no plan. Yeah. And I in my head now, I'm like, did I even tell him that? I was like, had I just left the message? And it never occurred to me to have a plan B. I just thought, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll figure it out. And I guess I was just waiting, and I'm not even sure how long I would have waited, but I just thought, well, I'll just wait. He'll come. I just had trust, and he did. And
I love that. You had trust that he would come, and that's just means, like, especially as Americans, we're extremely impatient. And man, I don't know a lot of people that would have waited an hour just saying, "Oh, okay, he's gonna show up. Yeah. He's gonna show up." I mean, because after about 30 minutes, it's like, okay, my flight's on time. Why isn't he here? I guess he's not coming. And then like easy to think of, okay, now what am I going to do? So that would have been horrible if you would have left. If you would have left the airplane, then if he would have arrived late and then y'all would have missed each other or something like.
Yeah,
and then I would have been anxious.
And there wouldn't have really been a way to contact apart from him to go home and get on his emails and send me an email. And I would have had to log in at an internet cafe somewhere. So, yeah. So he came, and I've learned now after being together for 20 years, he just runs late. That's just it.
And I mean, that is all about trust, because he also didn't have, a way to contact you, because nowadays, you're sitting on the tarmac and you can check your text message. Oh, well, they're running late. Yeah, and you had no way of knowing if he was going to be late, if he was going to be on time. You just had faith and trust that he was going to be there. And so y'all are still together.
Yeah. So, exactly. So I just went back and I moved straight in with him. And now thinking about that seems very bold to me now. I can't imagine now going on holiday at the age of 40, meeting someone and just after spending like 3 weeks with them, just going to their country and moving in with them without even really discussing it. It was never really a discussion. It was just like, this is just what we're doing. So
now, did he know that at some point you planned on going to Australia?
He had known I'd planned, because when we met in Asia, I'd said I'd planned on going to Australia. And when I asked where he was from, and he said Melbourne, I said, well, I hadn't planned on going to Melbourne, but I was like, I can always, detour down there. And when he left Asia, I was in Asia for another 3 weeks. And so through that sort of email correspondence, I was like, well, I think actually I just want to see you straight away when I get there. So, and I think anyone that knows, I know when you travel with someone for 3 weeks, people think 3 weeks sounds a very short time, but if you're dating someone for 3 weeks, you might see them.
Do you want to start saying yes, but you just don't know where to start? And oftentimes when we don't know where to start, we just don't start. So we created an ebook just for you. We put together 101 ways to say yes. In this ebook, ideas big and small, things that only take a small amount of time, like 1 to 2 minutes. Whether you're saying yes to yourself, in your family, relationships, or pushing yourself lovingly outside of your comfort zone with adventures, it's all made to really help you become more of your rock star self. So you can get this ebook at thesayyesexperience.com/book, BOOK. So if you want to start saying yes, or maybe you need some ideas on how to say yes because you get so caught up in being busy and doing tasks and projects or doing laundry and cooking that the time flies by and you want to spend time with your family, but you just don't know how to say yes. Those ideas just don't come to you. We put it together to make it super, super easy for you. So go to thesayyesexperience.com/book to get your copy today and start saying yes now. Are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or burned out? We get it. You're not alone. In fact, according to our research, 79% of the workforce is in burnout and almost half are in extreme burnout. In fact, it's the number one reason why people are leaving organizations. They're burned out. They're looking for something more. They're looking for something better. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have your solution. It's called Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout. 52 keys to prevent, break through, and eliminate burnout. You can find your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Now, this is a great tool that you can use with yourself, with your colleagues, within your organization. Everyone can get one, and you can go through one a week with them. And at the end, you can say, what was something that worked this week? What was the success you had? So you can champion and encourage each other. You can also ask what were the challenges and issues that came up, so you can mastermind and brainstorm around those to keep those from coming up in the future. So make sure you get your copy at jessicarector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you.
3, 4, 5 times. When you're traveling together, you are with this person
All the time.
24 hours. So you just get to know them so well, so quickly, and they sort of immediately they feel like you've known them your whole life.
And I think that's key about that, Carly, is when you're traveling with someone like that, you are put in various situations. So you also see how they respond in those situations, whereas you can be dating someone for 6 months and maybe never get in those same kind of situations to see how they're going to respond. But traveling, you come up with challenges. I mean, you find out real well how they handle challenges and issues. And, especially when you're in a foreign country to both of y'all, right? No one is from Asia. So it was all new and exciting, but also because they do things completely different over there than what y'all are used to, right?
Exactly. And
both of you are put in different situations so you can kind of see how each other responds as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you can't put on your best sort of front it's easy to put on your best person for a 1-2 hour date. But for 24 hours when you're together in these little small rooms, and we were both university students, or I just left at the time. So we were traveling on a real budget, like rooms with shared bathrooms and, just a fan, no aircon. So we know each other well.
Yeah, and because you're also, you're younger and you're also, I think, really resilient and flexible when you're younger.
Yes.
So also show those different facets and different sides of yourself, a little bit more carefree when you're younger too, meaning that, you tend to not stress and worry and like all these kind of things, especially when you're out traveling, but you're still shown and you're presented with different things, whether it's transportation may not go the way you planned, or you plan to go somewhere and then it ends up being closed. So how do you respond or react to that? And then what do you decide to do? Is someone like super like rigid where no, you said 10 o'clock, we have to be there at 9:55, or they like, 10:15. You also, different sides of your personalities come out. So you can also see how well you're going to mesh with each other.
Yeah, exactly. And so I end up in Australia and I moved straight in with him, and within a couple of days, I just knew. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. And so
did he know the same thing? Did he feel that too?
Yeah. So we were just like, okay, that's great. That's it. I'm staying. So I called my parents and I said, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm staying here. And
what'd they say?
They were actually fine with it. So my mum, I think she sort of expected me, because she always knew I wanted to explore the world and was just like, I need to leave this small town. And she actually said, gosh, I thought you were going to end up on a beach somewhere trying to sell shells or something to make a living. So I think she was happy in that scenario in her head. In her head. Yeah. So she was like, okay, you're not desolate on some island. Which I probably wouldn't have minded either. So I was in Australia. So she was like, okay, that's, I sort of expected that. So they knew I was always a bit more carefree than the rest of my siblings. So
yeah. So Carly, when you literally made that decision of, like initially you visited Australia, but then you made the decision, I'm going to stay here, not going anywhere. How challenging or easy was that transition for you once you knew, hey, I'm not going back to England? Because initially you thought, I'm just going to be traveling for a year.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back. Well, now it's, I'm not leaving Australia. So how was that transition for you?
So, and it was very exciting. Initially, I think the first 2 years, that for me was the hardest in terms of homesickness. In terms of maybe missing, I had a very tight core group of girlfriends, and I'm talking the friends that you've been friends with since you're 4 or 5 years old. So these are people I used to see every day my whole life. So they were essentially like family to me. So I know it sounds bad, but I sort of miss them more than I missed my family, because they weren't my life. And and they get me. And, as we said at the time, the internet wasn't as big as it is now. So it wasn't as easy to stay in contact. You had to really make an effort, which, we were very good at, like writing letters and emails. And so the first 2 years, definitely the hardest in terms of homesickness and missing people. But then I guess in my head, I just said, well, you know what? I choose love, and I choose to stay here because yes, I can go back to England, but this is way more exciting living in Australia and, with some guy I met on the beach.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story, right? And it also shows that you have no idea where you're going to meet someone, because if you think back to all the different, say yeses that you had that led up to that big one, if you think of where everything had to align and everything had to come together, like you had to be in Thailand at the place where you were staying, the guys, to be about the full moon party, for you to be at the full moon party on the beach. Yeah, that's big time. That's a lot of stuff that had to happen. Not just for you, but also for your husband. Like all these things had to line up for him to be on the beach at that exact moment.
It is. And I'm a big believer of things happening for the right time at the right moment, and that, I know a lot of people say, oh, there's not just one person for you because there's 8 billion people in the world. And maybe there's not one, maybe there's several persons for you, but it's just what times, align and make you meet that person. But to me, I think ever since I met him, it just always felt like that was it. Like there was never any option. We were the people for each other.
But what's also fascinating about it, Carly, is that it could have very easily been where you had this conversation with him and, it was great and everything was wonderful. And you're like, oh, and he piqued your interest. But then you had this plan to travel around the world for a year. So you could have easily had, okay, well, like he piques my interest. It's just a holiday romance. And then you go to traveling around the world, right?
Exactly.
That could have been a scenario too. So some big, but you had these big yes moments, these big yeses to lead you to where you are. So in the process of those big yeses, what led you to say yes instead of saying, well, no, I'm going to go finish my travel, or, I don't know if I really want to stay here for another 3 weeks. I want to go with my girlfriend wherever she's going. What made you decide to take that route and to say yes? Because that was one yes. And then traveling with him specifically was a yes. And then, changing your plane ticket to stay with him was So what led you to keep saying yes to all those times?
So I think, well, one, I'm a little bit of a romantic at heart, even though I like to say I'm not, but also the fact of just the possibility of what could happen. So people always think about, oh, God, but what if I do this? What if they do? And it's not always a negative. It's not always a negative, right? People say, well, what if I ask this? And they say no. But in my head, I'm always like, well, what if I ask and they say yes? Well, what if I ask and it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened? And because I always think like, well, if someone says no, for that moment, you might die of embarrassment and be like, oh my God. But then, you know what? Like I said, there is 8 billion other people out there. So say yes and take a chance and just think of the positive. Think of what could happen. Think of the amazingness that you could experience.
Yes. And I love, it's, what if I ask and they say no? Well, what if I ask? Totally flipping that. What if instead of us immediately thinking, what if this happens? We go, what if this happens? Oh my God.
Yeah.
We've already talked ourselves into and already believe that is going to happen. And it reminds me of you sitting in the airport waiting. You weren't like, oh, what if he doesn't show up? Oh, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. You just stood in that trust knowing he's going to show up. Okay. And if he doesn't, then we'll figure it out. But it wasn't a conscious thought that you kept replaying. In your mind that, oh my gosh, he's not going to show up. And now what am I going to do? You just sat there. And even you even said, I don't know how long I would have sat there.
Yeah.
You could have been there for 3 hours before you decided, okay, maybe he's not going to show up.
Yeah.
You just kept sitting in that trust. And I think that if we all just sit in that trust that it's going to work out, that it's going to be a yes, that things are going to be amazing, that the love's going to happen, or whatever it is, instead of thinking, well, what if it doesn't? When we start sitting in that trust, that's when things change.
Yeah, definitely. I think people can be a self-fulfilling prophecy if you look at the world negatively and you think a lot of bad things are going to happen. I'm not saying that makes things happen, but sometimes it just makes you more aware of those bad situations, those negative situations. And even now, if negative things happen, I try and always look at the silver lining, so to say. I try and look at the good thing that's come out of it. Okay, well, this isn't ideal, but let's look at this positively, because otherwise you're just going to end up like angry and sour, and all that's going to make you unhappy. So always try and look at the positive in a situation and think, okay, well, let's make the best out of it. Let's make the best out of the situation that we can do.
When someone is presented with that opportunity, it may not be on the beach with a guy, but they're presented with something and they're like, I don't know. What do you want to say, or how do you want to encourage them to really just say yes to that? Because I believe when we start saying yes, that can change the whole trajectory of our life.
Yes.
Outside of our comfort zone, and what we like to say, into possibilities. I mean, think of all the possibilities that came out of the yeses that you said.
I know for that
trajectory of your life, right? So, but people may say, well, that's great, but I'm not sitting on the beach, chatting with a guy. So how can I take that and put that into my life?
You might not be, but what about if you walk into that coffee shop and you probably see this same guy here every morning if you're going there all the time, and you might look or smile. Well, how about the one time you just go say hi and see what happens? And it's not necessarily just about meeting someone. What about jobs? You see this job advertising, you think, I really want that, but I don't think they're going to want me. Well, what if they do? What if they do want you? And you apply, and I always figure, what is the worst? Well, they don't reply, or they say, sorry, you weren't needed, or they reply and say, yes, have an interview.
Yeah, so, that's just it. You don't know. One of the things I believe is you always know what's behind you, right? You always know what's back there because you've lived that, you've been there, but you don't know what's in front of you until you start saying yes.
Definitely. And I look now at my life now, and God, I talked so much about that. I didn't even talk about things like I went back to study and I became a midwife, which was never on my radar. And now I work like traveling across the country, like across Australia as a midwife. And that was something that was 100% never on my radar as a 20-year-old. And now so just from that one decision, my life went in a totally different way that I ever expected it would go.
And you're still able to travel because you're a midwife. So now you can travel around and still your love of travel along with doing that together. What a great, all because you said yes initially into Australia, and it opened up opportunities that you didn't even know that you wanted or didn't even know existed. Right?
Yeah, this is definitely just something I didn't know I wanted, didn't know existed, didn't know I wanted to go back to university for 4 years and do another degree. And even now I'm like, wow, that was a long time. But it was something, those 4 years were going to pass regardless. So I'm glad I stepped up and did something and didn't just sit in my job that I was no longer enjoying.
Yeah, and then look back and say, man, 4 years passed, whether I did this or not, I wish I would have done that, right? And
exactly.
Regret. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Carly, and I hope it inspires people out there to start saying yes, whether they're on the beach, whether they're in a coffee shop. Sometimes it's just a smile that can get a conversation going, or whether it's applying for their job or whatever, the many opportunities that present themselves every day. So we'll see you next time. Start saying yes to really change the trajectory of your life, and also open yourself up to so many more possibilities that are waiting for you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Are you ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness? CFO, Chief Fun Officer, #1 best-selling author, and keynote speaker Blaze Rector is ready to help you do that. At just 10 years old, he's already written 2 #1 best-selling books. Through the power of storytelling, he uses lessons learned and shares strategies, tips, tactics, and tools to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live a more amazing life. So if you're ready to do that in your own life, grab a copy of his #1 best-selling books at jessicarector.com jowit.com/store. And when you order your copies, he will personally autograph them and write you a message on those books before shipping them out to you to really inspire and empower you in your life. These books are great for adults and kids alike. So if you're ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness, make sure you grab your copy at justcorrector.com/store. Enjoy those amazing, empowering, transformational books. Did you know that the two biggest issues impacting the workforce are mental health and burnout? Well, we have your solution. The more that you feel burned out, the more it impacts your mental health. The more your mental health is impacted, the more it leads to burnout. So it's a vicious cycle that goes around and around, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can help them both if you're intentional and strategic with it. We have lots of resources for you at justcorrector.com/store. One that I want to highlight that really enhances your mental health is Tame Your Brain Game, 52 Tips to Turn Negative Thoughts into Positive Action. Now, research shows that 80% of your thoughts are negative. No matter how positive you feel, it's the pattern and the habit that you've developed over the course of years, over the course of decades. And that can often impact your life, how you show up, how you lead, how you communicate, how you engage, whether at work or at home. And then it also impacts a work environment. All you need is one NN or TT, negative Nancy or toxic Tim, to really impact that work environment. So if you are ready to enhance your mental health, get your copy of Tame Your Brain Game, 52 Tips to Turn Negative Thoughts into Positive Action today at justcorrector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you. Thank you so much for being here. Check us out at thesayyesexperience.com. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. With your help in sharing our podcast, we can do that. Follow us on all social media at the Say Yes Experience and join our free community at facebook.com/groups/the Say Yes Experience. Thank you again to our guest. You can find all the contact information for our guest in the show notes. Thank you to our CFO, Chief Fun Officer, Blaze Rector, our business advisor, Lisa Verhurick, and to our team at Just Corrector Enterprises. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Have an amazing day and keep being a rock star.